Hello fellow Tenno, this is Daredevil back with How OP Is It? Today we are going to be talking about Saren's Spores, her first ability that she gets. Saren's Spores are a very simplistic but yet complicated ability. The base definition that we get is it inflicts a target with a pox of corrosive spores, spreads the spores over to nearby enemies by destroying them or killing them their host. The longer the spore spreads, its damage will increase. There are plenty of things that this spore can do. The initial damage is affected by power strength, then damage growth per enemy is affected by power strength, and also the status chance of the corrosive and the reset decay. Duration affects the damage decay rate when they have no enemies on. The duration affects the damage decay rate, which is only relevant when you have no spores active on any targets. The cast range and the spread range are already at a decent amount at the base max level of 60 meters for the cast range and a 16 meter spread range. There are things that you cannot control, such as the duration is infinite, so you don't have to ever worry about it. 7 damage growth enemy cap, so that means that the damage will only increase from 7 people maximum. 0.5 damage decay intervals, so your damage decay will decrease every half second. The initial spores will be always 3, regardless of how much power strength or anything. Only 1 spore is needed to transmute. Maximum spores per enemy is going to be 3. 12 max spores per enemy via recast, meaning casting it on the same target, will be 12. And if they have miasma on them, they will be doing 4 times the damage. Shooting or hitting a spore directly versus the membrane, releasing the infected pus, which will regrow to health and transmit 1 spore to enemies within the affected range. Infected enemies can carry up to 3 via. If the spores are still active, recasting on any enemy consumes 20% of the current damage per second from the infection meter that is posted on the bottom right hand corner of your screen. This ability really synergizes with Toxic Blast, making the spores burst with every attack. So if you have on one target, you can keep hitting it over and over again, and they'll constantly replenish the spores on that person because it is within the affected range. If you use Miasma, Miasma deals 400% damage to enemies affected by the spores. Spores is a one-handed action, so you could be running, jumping, doing whatever you want while casting spores. The one thing that you have to notice, though, is if the initial target dies before the spores appear, the energy used for the spores will be refunded. And also, if the enemy dies via spore damage, it will not spread. It has to be popped by an operator, a weapon, something outside the spore damage. Now, as I said before, it will keep growing and growing. The initial damage are affected by the power strength, but the damage cap is infinite. It can be going as long as you want. Certain bosses are immune to this status effect, such as the Eidolons, which would be a really shame. Such as the Eidolons, which would be kind of too easy to farm them if you could just put a spore onto them. The hard cap, though, is been recorded at 70,000. But yeah, overall, Spores is a really good ability. Has great CC. As in, like, it reduces the enemy's armor, great utility. Doesn't seem like all that much, but for a first ability, is probably one of the strongest first abilities that the game offers. Going with their augment that you can increase your enemy's corrosive damage within 15 meters when holding the spore button. Overall, survival missions, defense missions, interceptions, it's probably one of the best abilities there are. Just keep popping people, and the spore count will rise and rise and rise. It's not that hard to do any defensive mission, considering that you can just let the spores sit on them and it will just roll. You could be versing level 2,000 to 9,000 enemies and it will still end up doing massive amounts of damage, especially once you get 10 stacks of corrosive on them. It just makes doing any endless mission all that more. If you have max range, you can easily do an exterminate mission, and it just makes clearing out rooms ridiculously fast, especially if you have a wide range ability or another wide range weapon such as the Atarax or decent explosion weapons. I don't know what else is there to say about this ability. It's ridiculously good. It's also known as the Elite Sanctuary Onslaught. She's probably one of the best people to be in there with because she could just clear a whole room in a matter of seconds because the rooms are so small and her range is so high out of 16. If you get 250% ability range, you could get up to 40 meters and that will just stack on anything that moves in those onslaughts. Overall, if I had to rate this ability, I would say probably 9 out of 10. It's probably one of the best abilities I could think, especially for a starter ability. Very good damage ability. Doesn't have a high base damage, but leave it on there, leave it on someone long enough and it will just climb higher than any ability in the game. Alright, well that's going to be it for today's video. I'll see y'all next week in my next video. If you have any suggestions, please drop them down. Please leave a like and subscribe, or don't. And I'll see you in the next video, Tennos. Peace.